She stood me up at the marriage bureau 4 times, calling me invisible, the perfect target for her scam. She kept me single to drain my accounts through a shell company. Then I met another victim. We compared notes and filed a federal complaint that exposed 13 targets. She thought she had time, but 96 hours later, she wasn't the one in control anymore. 手到年才买拿. My name is Nate Calloway. I manage a garment factory floor 63 employees, 2 shifts, a building that smells like industrial detergent and machine oil year-round. I've been doing it for 11 years. It's not glamorous, but I'm good at it, and I've never pretended otherwise. Becca Langford managed investment portfolios for a mid-size firm called Meridian Capital Group. She wore blazers to dinner. She talked about liquidity and market cycles, the way I talked about production timelines. She called me grounded. I thought that was a compliment. Probably it was just not in the way I assumed. We were together 3 years. In that time, I paid for the first 2 marriage bureau appointments myself, $75 each, filing fee, no questions asked. That's not the part that matters. The part that matters is this. Somewhere in those 3 years, I co-signed 3 commercial loan guarantees for her. Combined total, $140,000. Each time, she slid the paperwork across the table with the same phrase. It's just a formality. They need a second signature. It doesn't actually mean anything legally. I signed. I trusted her. I would find out later that trusting her was the entire point. The first time she didn't show up at the bureau, her excuse was a car accident on the 405. I believed her. It was plausible. It was a Tuesday, and she called me crying from the side of the road. The second time, her mother had an emergency appendectomy. I drove to the hospital. I sat with her family for 4 hours. The third time, a wire transfer crisis at work, something about a client account flagged by their compliance department. She left a voicemail that time. I still remember exactly how she sounded. Exhausted, a little shaken, genuinely sorry. I rescheduled the appointment myself so she wouldn't have to worry about it. I kept that voicemail for a long time. I listened to it one last time the night of the 4th no-show before I blocked her number. I wanted to hear whether it still sounded real. It did. That was the part I couldn't figure out. 3 times, I told myself it was just bad timing. Relationships have rough patches. Life gets in the way. 3 times I drove home alone and believed the story I was given. The 4th time, she didn't even call. Say 4 on Stein. Her name was Claire Weston. I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that she was sitting 2 chairs down from me, crying quietly into a paper towel. Ruth had passed her without being asked, and she was holding ticket 48. She wasn't dressed like someone who'd expected to cry that morning. Gray wrap dress, professional, the kind of thing you'd wear to a budget meeting or a client presentation. Her hair was pulled back. She had a pin behind her ear. She looked like someone who had planned this day carefully and was now watching the plan fail in real time. I didn't say anything for a while. Neither did she. Around 10:20, she checked her phone. Then she set it face down on her knee. Then she picked it up and checked it again. I recognized the motion. I'd been doing the same thing for 40 minutes. 3rd time for you too? She said. She wasn't looking at me when she said it. 4th, I said. She almost laughed. It wasn't a happy sound, but it was real. And in that room with the fluorescent lights and the hum of the AC unit, it was the first honest thing I'd heard all morning. We sat in silence for another few minutes. Ruth was processing paperwork at the front. Donna in records was on the phone. Danny, the security guard, was standing near the exit, looking at nothing in particular. Then I heard myself say, "They're not coming." Claire said, "No." I looked at the ticket in my hand, then at hers. "We're both already here," I said. "Filed. Paid. Everything's already processed." She turned and looked at me for the first time. I want to be clear, I wasn't trying to be charming. I wasn't even trying to be funny. I was 36 years old, and I had driven 40 minutes to this building 4 separate times, and I was tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "I'm not joking," I said. She looked at me for a long moment. "I know," she said. "That's the problem." We walked up to Ruth's desk together. Ruth looked at us, then at our tickets, then back at us. "Legally, yes, if you're both consenting adults with valid ID," she said slowly. "But I want to be very clear, this is a real marriage. Not a form, not a placeholder, a legal marriage." "So was the last one supposed to be?" I said. Ruth held eye contact with me for a second. Then she reached for the forms. At 10:41, I was married to a woman whose last name I hadn't learned yet. Donna in records witnessed it. So did Danny. Ruth processed the certificate and stamped it with the county seal. The whole thing took 19 minutes. I don't know what I expected to feel. What I actually felt was very quiet, the kind of quiet that happens right before something starts, not after something ends. Claire tucked her copy of the certificate into her bag, clicked her pin, and said, "We should probably talk about what we just did." Taiwanese Taiwanese. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table and took a photo of the marriage certificate. Both names, the county seal, the 1041 timestamp. I sent it to Becca with no caption. Then I blocked her number. I texted my sister Joanna one line. "I got married today." She called back in 4 minutes. I let it go to voicemail. The photo sent at 2:17. I know because I checked the metadata later, when it mattered. I found out through Joanna weeks after that Becca had screenshotted it and called someone within the hour. At the time, I didn't know who. I just knew I was done explaining myself to someone who couldn't be bothered to show up. That evening, Claire and I met at a diner about 6 blocks from the bureau. Vinyl booths, laminated menus, coffee that came in a pot you left on the table. We were both still in the same clothes we'd worn that morning. We agreed on a few things quickly. We were legally married. We were not going to immediately divorce because we would behave like two adults who respected each other, figure out what this actually was later, and not make it weird in the meantime. Claire ordered black coffee. No sugar. I ordered the same. Neither of us mentioned it. About 40 minutes in, she opened her laptop and started typing. I watched her build a spreadsheet in real-time columns for shared legal exposure, state filing status, asset classifications, potential liabilities. She titled it Weston Calloway Household Preliminary Legal Framework. "You do this for fun?" I said. "I do this when I'm nervous," she said, without looking up. I found that deeply reassuring. I don't fully know why. She finished the first pass and turned the screen toward me. Then she pointed at a cell near the bottom. "You co-signed 3 guarantees," she said. "That's not nothing. What were the terms?" I told her what I knew, which wasn't much. Becca had handled the paperwork. I'd signed where she pointed. Each time, she said it was a formality. Claire looked at me for a moment. Then she typed something and didn't say anything else for a while. 3 days later, a certified letter arrived at my apartment. It came from a debt recovery firm I'd never heard of, representing a commercial lender I'd also never heard of. It referenced 2 of the 3 guarantees I'd co-signed. The combined default exposure listed on page 1 was $94,000. I had 30 days to respond before they could move to place a lien on my assets. I read the letter twice. Then I looked at the postmark date. It had been sent 2 days before Becca was supposed to meet me at the bureau for the 4th time. She knew this letter was coming. She knew it before she didn't answer my texts, before she let my calls go to voicemail, before she let me sit in that plastic chair for 40 minutes holding a numbered ticket. That was a decision, which meant the question wasn't whether Becca had planned this. The question was what, exactly, she had been planning and whether I was the only one she'd done it to. I called Claire that night. She picked up on the second ring. "I got a letter too," she said. "I was about to call you." Thompson. Claire's letter had arrived 6 weeks before mine. She'd shown it to Owen when it came. He told her it was a clerical error. Something about the lender's filing system, a duplicate notice sent to the wrong party, nothing she needed to worry about. He said he'd handle it. She asked twice more over the following weeks. Both times, he said the same thing, "I'm handling it," with a tone that implied the question itself was the problem. He said I was reading too much into it, she told me. That I had a habit of catastrophizing paperwork. She'd let it go. She trusted him. Her exposure was 2 guarantees. Combined total, $67,000. Different lender than mine, but the same debt recovery firm. Same letter format. And when she slid the document across the diner table so I could look at it, I saw something at the bottom of the notarization block that made me stop. The notary's name was Victor Slade. I looked at my letter. Same name, same stamp. Neither of us had ever met anyone named Victor Slade. We sat with that for a moment. Claire pulled her laptop over and started searching. It didn't take long. She found it on LinkedIn, a post from the Meridian Capital Group account, dated 2021. The caption read, "Meridian Capital Partners Annual Dinner." There were 3 people in the photo, standing on a rooftop somewhere downtown, drinks in hand, all smiling. Owen Hale was on the left. Becca Langford was in the middle. Victor Slade was on the right. All 3 were listed in the post as founding partners of Meridian Capital Group. Owen had told Claire he worked in real estate development. Becca had told me she managed portfolios for a mid-size firm. They were the same firm. They had been the same firm for at least 6 years. And Victor Slade, the man whose name appeared on both our notarized loan documents, wasn't just a notary. He was their business partner. Claire closed the laptop. Neither of us said anything for a while. Then she opened it again and started a new tab. I watched her pull up both letters side by side and go through them line by line. The way she'd built the spreadsheet, methodical, quiet, no wasted motion. After about 10 minutes, she leaned back and looked at the ceiling. They had a method, she said. Find someone stable. Someone with income and assets and no one at home who'd scrutinize the paperwork. Get close enough that signing something feels like a gesture, not a contract. Keep them unmarried because married people have protections, single people don't. Then when the loans default, you collect. I thought about the phrase just a formality. I thought about, I'll handle it. 2 different people. Same script. The no-shows, I said. Maintenance, she said. Keep the target attached. Keep them single. Keep them exposed. She looked at me. We weren't unlucky in love, Nate. We were selected. I let that sit. Then I said, how many times do you think they've done this? She didn't answer right away. She was already typing. This wasn't improvised, she said. A method this clean, this patient, this is a pattern, not an accident. Which means we're probably not the only ones asking that question right now. She was right. We just didn't know yet how many people were asking it. Teen dom 10 dom. The union rep at my factory had used a business litigation attorney once before for a contractor dispute that almost shut us down for a month. He gave me the number without asking why I needed it. The attorney's name was Marcus Grant. His office was on the 4th floor of a building that smelled like old carpet and printer toner, and he had the kind of desk that looked like it had been organized once, years ago, and never touched since. I told him I'd co-sign 3 commercial loan guarantees, and that the firm behind them might not be what it presented itself as. He listened without taking notes. When I finished, he asked me 2 questions, the name of the firm and the name of the notary on the documents. When I said Victor Slade, he stopped. He opened his bottom desk drawer and pulled out a file. He set it on the desk between us. It was roughly an inch thick. You're not the first, he said. You're the 12th. He'd been building the case for 4 months, starting with 3 clients who'd come to him separately through different referrals, all with the same pattern. Romantic relationship, co-signed guarantees, loan default, debt recovery notice, no show. 13 victims total once he added Nate and Claire combined fraudulent guarantee obligations of $1.4 million. Loan documents dating back 26 months, every single one bearing Victor Slade's notary stamp. Wire fraud. Securities fraud. Federal jurisdiction. Claire sat next to me and didn't say a word. She was reading the file. I watched her turn pages the way she'd built the spreadsheet, steady, no expression, taking everything in. Then Grant said the thing that reframed the last 3 years in about 15 seconds. The reason they kept you unmarried, he said. That was deliberate. In this state, certain spousal assets are exempt from premarital individual debt judgments, but only if the marriage predates the judgment entry date. Married targets can invoke spousal asset protections. Single targets can't. They picked people who were stable enough to be worth targeting and invisible enough that no one would scrutinize the paperwork. Invisible by default, that was the profile they were looking for. I sat with that. 3 years. 4 appointments. 5 texts that morning that she never answered. All of it, every piece of it, in service of keeping me on the wrong side of one legal threshold. Claire asked Grant when the default judgments were expected to be entered. He said within the next few weeks, depending on the lender's filing timeline. Then he looked at us with an expression I couldn't quite read. When did you 2 get married? He said. 3 weeks ago, I said. He wrote something down. And the letter Nate received was postmarked when? 2 days before the marriage. Claire said. Grant nodded slowly. Then she miscalculated. The marriage predates the judgment entry, which means Claire's pension and deferred compensation account are now partially shielded under joint filing status. And Nate's factory assets are in a more complicated position than Meridian planned for. He paused. She spent 3 years making sure you stayed single. She ran out of time by 4 days. The marriage Becca had spent 3 years preventing was the one thing that protected me from her. I thought about the 5 texts I'd sent that morning. 9:40, 9:51, 10:02, 10:08, 10:12. All delivered. Not one of them read. I'd assumed her phone was busy. I'd assumed a lot of things. Grant had subpoenaed Becca's device activity through the federal complaint process. Her phone showed she'd been active on Meridian's internal team chat at 10:07 that morning. 2 minutes after my fourth unanswered text, she had typed a message to Owen Hale. Grant turned the page and pushed it across the desk so I could read it. He's probably at the bureau. Let him wait. 10:09 a.m. Sent to Owen. Read receipt confirmed. I looked at the timestamp, then at Claire, then back at the page. She wrote, let him wait at 10:09. I was married to someone else by 10:41. Bended Benger and Night Mendes. Grant needed two things from us, sworn joinder statements and a full surrender of our financial records. He needed them within 21 days. If we waited longer, the window got complicated. Meridian had already moved an estimated $380,000 through a limited liability company registered to Victor Slade in the Cayman Islands. The federal investigators tracking the account said the transfers were still active. Every week we delayed was another week that money got harder to reach. And while the asset drain continued, the debt recovery firm was still running its own clock 30 days on my lien notice, slightly longer on Claire's, both of them ticking. If you do nothing, Grant said, the judgments get entered, the liens go on your assets, and Meridian walks. The factory could take a hit. Claire's pension gets complicated, and 11 other people who've already signed onto this complaint get a thinner case. 11 other people. That number sat differently now than it had an hour ago. He gave us the weekend to decide. We didn't need the weekend, but we did need the night, because filing meant something beyond the legal mechanics. It meant our names going into a federal case record. It meant Becca and Owen would know we joined the complaint and that they might move to accelerate collection on softer targets before the indictment came down. It meant our impulsive marriage, the one we'd made in 19 minutes on a Tuesday morning, would become a documented exhibit in a federal fraud case. There was a real chance Becca's attorneys would try to characterize the whole thing as a calculated asset protection move. A convenient marriage. A coordinated play. I thought about how that would look on paper. Then I thought about Becca typing, let him wait at 10:09 in the morning while I was sitting in a plastic chair holding a numbered ticket, and I stopped worrying about how things looked on paper. Claire was quiet for a long time. Then she opened the laptop. She pulled up the spreadsheet. She highlighted the title. She deleted the word preliminary and typed one word in its place. Offensive. She hit save. Then she closed the laptop and looked at me. Okay, she said. We signed the joinder statements in Grant's office 2 days later. A legitimate notary. I watched the stamp come down and thought about the last time I'd signed something without reading it first. I thought about a kitchen table and a phrase about formalities and how easy it had been to believe that a signature was just a gesture. I read every line this time. Grant filed the federal complaint that same afternoon. By 5:30, a case number had been assigned. We became the record. We became the thing that couldn't be walked back, couldn't be managed, couldn't be quietly absorbed into whatever story Becca had been telling herself for 3 years. We found out later that she learned about the filing within 48 hours, and that she didn't take it quietly. Tension sit. 12 days after Grant filed, Becca reached me through my sister Joanna. She hadn't tried email. She hadn't shown up at the factory. She'd gone around the block I had on her number and found the one contact I hadn't thought to warn. Joanna called me that evening and said, she wants to talk to you. She says you're making a huge mistake. I told Joanna I wasn't interested. Joanna said, she's very convincing, Nate. I said, I know. That was the problem. What I didn't know until later was that Joanna had called Becca back on her own not to patch anything up, but because something felt off and Joanna trusted her instincts. She hit record before the second sentence. 11 minutes and 40 seconds. I've listened to it once. Becca's voice was calm, measured. The same voice she used when she explained liquidity ratios over dinner like she was doing me a favor. She said the loans were technically legal. She said I had misunderstood the paperwork. She said if I dropped the complaint, she would personally return the full $140,000, that it was never supposed to go this far, that there had been a miscommunication between the firm and the lenders that she was already working to resolve. Then she said, he's overreacting. He always makes himself the victim in situations like this. The woman he married is using him, Joanna. She saw an opportunity and she took it. He can't see it because he wants to believe he did something brave. Joanna didn't respond to any of it. She just let Becca talk. I forwarded the recording to Grant that night. He added it to the file as supplemental evidence. 11 minutes and 40 seconds of Becca Langford explaining, in her own voice, that the loans were real, that she knew about them, and that her primary concern was not resolution but containment. She'd called it a miscommunication. The federal complaint called it wire fraud. I didn't respond to her. I called Grant instead. 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning, Claire and I were at the Safeway on Doheny, ordinary errand. She was pushing the cart. I was reading a label on something neither of us ended up buying. We turned into the bread aisle at 11:20 and I saw them before they saw us. Becca and Owen. Together. Not as colleagues running into each other together, her hand in his. Close in the way that told you this wasn't new. She was laughing at something he'd said. He had his free hand in his pocket. Then Becca looked up. She dropped Owen's hand. Owen saw Claire and took one step back, the way people do when they've just realized the room they walked into is not the room they expected. Nobody spoke for a moment. There were 3 other people in the aisle. A store employee stocking the bottom shelf. All of them had gone still. Becca found her voice first. "Nate, I've been trying to reach you." "I know," I said. Owen looked at Claire. "You need to hear my side of." "No," Claire said. "I don't." She didn't say it loudly. She said it the way she changed the spreadsheet title, one word, final, no room for negotiation. Becca's voice shifted. The measured tone was still there, but something underneath it had changed. "This is insane. You married a stranger out of spite and now you're blowing up everything because Grant filed on the 14th, I said. The indictment timeline is 6 to 8 weeks. You should both talk to your attorneys. I said it the same way I'd say the weather. Owen grabbed Becca's arm. She was still looking at me like she was waiting for something, an opening, a crack she could work with. There wasn't one. You married a stranger, she said again. Quieter this time. Like she still couldn't process how that had been the variable she hadn't planned for. I married someone who actually read the paperwork, I said. They left a full cart in the bread aisle. Walked fast toward the exit without looking back. The store employee watched them go. So did everyone else in the aisle. Claire put a loaf of bread in our cart. We went and paid. 2 days later, I stopped by the county marriage bureau to pick up a certified copy of the certificate for Grant's file. Ruth was at the front desk. She looked up when I walked in, then at the case file number I slid across the counter. I gave a statement to the federal investigator last week, she said. I know, I said. Thank you. She pulled up the record and started processing the copy. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, you came back 4 times. Most people stop at 2. I didn't have a good answer for that. She stamped the copy, slid it across the counter, and said, "This one's going to stick." I picked up the certificate and walked back out into the parking lot. 5 months later, I found out she was right. 才没你走路，才没你。 5 months after Grant filed, Becca Langford, Owen Hale, and Victor Slade were indicted on 7 counts. Wire fraud, securities fraud, conspiracy, all 3 surrendered their passports the same afternoon. Victor's Cayman LLC was frozen within the week. The federal restitution order came to $1.1 million across 13 victims. Nate and Claire Calloway, that's what the file said, now had their guarantee obligations discharged in full. My $140,000, her $67,000. The factory didn't take a lien. Claire kept her pension. The sentencing guidelines put all 3 of them at 8 to 12 years, depending on cooperation and how the conspiracy counts stacked. The local business section ran a 2-paragraph brief about the indictment. It didn't mention any of the victims by name. 13 defrauded individuals, it said. That was all. Invisible by default. Except this time, we'd chosen it. There was nothing left to prove to anyone who hadn't already seen it. The case is still moving through the system. That part isn't over yet. But the part that really involved me, that's been over for a while now. Claire and I are still married. Not because of the legal framework, not because of the spreadsheet, not because of anything Grant filed. We're married because every morning she makes black coffee with no sugar, and so do I. And at some point that stopped being a detail we'd noticed and became just the way mornings work. Ticket 47 is on the refrigerator. So is 48. There's a magnet between them, a plain metal one, the kind you get free from a real estate agent you'll never call. We haven't talked about taking them down. The spreadsheet is still open on her laptop. She's updated the title once more since Grant's office. It doesn't say preliminary anymore. It doesn't say offensive either. It says Weston Calloway household ongoing. 47 line items. None of them are fraud related. She stood me up 4 times. She kept me single, kept me exposed, kept me invisible by design for 3 years, and the one thing she never planned for was that I'd stop waiting. The stranger I married instead turned out to be the person who showed up every single time. Ba Kum Sendo, QC Block Final Script. Estimated word count to 4,050 words. Central injustice clear in opening. Yes, her not showing up wasn't an accident. It was the whole plan. Planted in Section 1. Fully confirmed via Meridian chat log in Section 6. Primary lever. Authority dramatized. Yes, Attorney Grant. Federal complaint process. State spousal asset protection statute. Ruth and Joanna as secondary witnesses. Public climax clear. Yes, Safeway bread aisle. 11. 20 a.m. 3 bystanders plus store employee present. Full cart abandoned. Point of no return strong. Yes, spreadsheet title change. Preliminary offensive. As interior shift. Federal complaint filed and case number assigned as formal external act. Receipts planted and paid off. Yes, marriage certificate photo. S4. Certified debt letter plus postmark date. S4. LinkedIn photo. S5. Grants 1-inch file. Say, spousal asset protection statute. S6. 5 texts plus Meridian chat log subpoena. S6. Joanna's recorded call. S8. Motif. Symbol with payoff. Yes. Ticket #47. #FAR8. S1. S3. S9 refrigerator. Spreadsheet title 3. Stage arc. S4. S7. S9. 1-inch file. Say. Just a formality phrase. S2. S5. S7. Minimum 3 hard mini cliffs at macro transitions. Yes. That was a decision. I called Claire that night. She picked up on the second ring. I got a letter too. S4. S5. She wrote let him wait at 10:09. I was married to someone else by 10:41. S6. S7. F. She didn't take it quietly. S7. S8. Villain strikes X2 before climax. Yes, Becca screenshots marriage certificate and calls Owen within the hour. S4. Strike 1. LinkedIn photo confirms premeditated dual operation. S5. Stryket 4. Iconic quotable lines. Yes, I married someone who actually read the paperwork. She spent 3 years making sure you stayed single. She ran out of time by 4 days. She wrote, let him wait at 10:09. I was married to someone else by 10:41. No twist without prior setup. Yes, Victor Slade planted via notary stamp. S5. Before LinkedIn reveal. Spousal protections planted via Claire's dialogue. S5. Before Grant's explanation. S6. Joanna planted as unblocked contact. S4. Before recording scene. S8. Anchor words deployed. Yes 4 times. S1. S2. S8. S9. Marriage Bureau. S1. S3. S8. Pattern. Not an accident. S5. Invisible by default. S6. S9. Spousal asset protections. S5. S6. Tone consistent calm, but firm throughout. Yes. Nate does not raise his voice at any point in the script.